Hey guys, and welcome back to the Days In podcast. We're thrilled to have Tracy Mills and Nick Vass from J29 Inc. with us today. Tracy started J29 to create a company where people come first, and Nick is taking that mission to the next level with his leadership in healthcare IT. We'll explore their journey, what makes J29 unique, and the exciting work they're doing in the tech space. Tracy and Nick, welcome.
Hey,
Hi,
thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us on.
Absolutely. We're so excited for this one. Tracy, when we spoke, just getting even a brief introduction into J29, the background, the idea. I was really thrilled to hear kind of where that started, and I've been looking forward to this one ever since. And so I want to open the floor for both of you to kind of give us just a brief, and our listeners a brief introduction into who you guys are and where you got your start in your careers and how that led to you two coming together for J.
Yeah, sure. I love to talk about the story of J29, so I appreciate the opportunity to do that, especially to a new and expanding audience. So J29 actually just celebrated our 7th birthday. So
Congratulations.
7 years. Thank you. And it was sort of an idea that I had. I had almost a 20-year career within the Department of Defense, and I had many different roles there. I mean, early on, I was a chemistry major in college. I worked for a police department for a little bit. I did some forensic work, and then I landed at DOD, which was a really interesting perspective. I was a government employee, obviously, but I worked with a lot of government contractors. And at the time, all companies were saying that they were very customer focused. But yet you would see employees that hop from company to company. And it could be company culture, it could be pay, it could be a multitude of things. But I've always felt like when a company has their eye on the customer and not the employees, I think they have it wrong, and I think they have it backwards. So because of many different things that happened in my life, I stepped away from that job, and I thought I was finished. I thought I was retired. But as I will always say, God had other plans for me, and I wasn't finished. And I remember going to my husband one day, right after we had went to church, and I told him that I was going to start my own government contracting company. And my husband, who is a CFO for another company in the area, he was like, "Okay, I'll play this game. What are you going to do?" And I said, "I'm not really sure yet. I don't know the what, but I know the why." And that kind of got his attention a little bit. And I said, I wanted to create a company that was employee focused, that really valued the people that they had, that really was interested in retaining the people they had. And I wanted to start a company that gave back. And, being the financial person that he is, he said, "Oh, so you're going to start a nonprofit?" And I said, "Nope, not a nonprofit, a government contracting company." And so, so the next question was, "And what is your company going to be named?" And I knew right away. And I said, "It's J29. And so, the eyebrow goes up again. And, well, what's J29? J29 is named after my favorite Bible verse, Jeremiah 29:11, because I've learned that, that's a verse that many people know. That's a verse that everybody sees on the plaques and the necklaces and everything else. But I think that not many people understand what that verse is all about. And it's about going through really difficult times in your life, which everyone can relate to, and realizing that those things happen for a reason, and that there is hope and there is prosperity on the other side of it. We might not understand it at the time. We might not understand it right away, but eventually one day we will. And it's just that passion to do something, that purpose that you see in it, and that perseverance to continue working through, even when you don't know what that's going to be.
Yeah.
So J29 was birthed sort of from that idea. And again, we knew the why, but we didn't know the what. And that's kind of where Nick started to come in a little bit. And I think that, they always say that a house that's built on a strong foundation won't fall. And I think that looking back at the success of J29, one of the reasons that we've been so successful is because our foundation is strong. We put our employees first. We recognize the fact that, um, employee happiness is directly related to customer happiness.
Mm.
We realize that an employee sacrifices every single day to get out of bed and spend time away from their family and from those things that are most important for a job. And they have to find that job to be meaningful, and they need to know that they're appreciated. And when they're appreciated, they're going to like their job. And when they like their job, the customer's going to be happy. So
Absolutely.
I feel like employee centric has sort of become a buzzword, but what does that really mean? And how do companies do that and look forward? And going back to the other mission with J29, the philanthropy side of things, we tied our earnings every month to different nonprofits or community efforts. So when an employee comes on, we like to get to know them. We like to find out what's important to them, and we like to support those causes as well because our employees are important to us. So, those things are, then that's where we are literally going to put our money where our mouth is to make them feel that mission driven purpose to the work that they do. Having a background in government contracting and then finding Nick, who just has always inspired me with his passion for the work that he does, but how he's able to. Nick is a natural leader. I've always said that. Everyone at J29 will say that about him. And, coming into a space where we grew completely organically. And
Mhm.
I do attribute a lot of that to Nick's vision on that contracting part of it. So I'll let him answer sort of the second part of that, but that was sort of the foundational idea, and I'll let Nick talk about how we took that and grew that.
Absolutely. Sure. Yeah. So we really like to refer to ourselves as a employee-centered healthcare management consulting company.
Yeah.
Tracy obviously spoke a lot to the employee-centered component, but as a healthcare management consulting company, which, as an aside, is a very, very broad definition, we really focus on the processing, reviewing, and analysis of different types of medical claims, medical data, medical records, audits, disputes, appeals, anywhere where we are, one, focusing in a healthcare track, but two, consulting with our clients really in the form of bringing our clinical expertise, right? Could be through nurses, physical therapists, doctors that we have on board, our policy expertise, knowing healthcare policy around provider enrollment, payer requirements, maybe even beneficiary requirements too. And then the third is also on the compliance side too. That's where we really play from an auditing perspective. So unique to us, 7 years and a couple days in, as Tracy mentioned, we've really got behind the consulting piece of what we do. And again, that's a very broad definition, but what that
Yeah.
really means for our clients is consulting party or independent party, third party, non-biased party, no financially, connected party to the clients that we serve. Now, where that's kind of tied into our story is when we started getting, growing our business on the state side and working with some great state agencies, such as state of Maryland agencies, um, they were too biased to process, review, or analyze different types of claims or records or do data analysis. So they needed that independent party, that consulting party. That's kind of where we came into play there. So we got started on the state side. We branched that off federally, working with some great Department of Health and Human Services agencies that have really impactful missions to vulnerable populations. And then as of last November, we actually broke off a commercial service offering. So very proud to say we are not a stereotypical government contractor. We are a company that does serve folks on the commercial side as well. We're not 100% government revenue for that capacity. And, that was a lot of hard work that a lot of our team did to break off and offer our services commercially, which is a completely different ball game than doing stuff for the government. And I always like to add that in there. So yeah, that's a little bit where we are. The other thing I will add today, under Tracy's leadership, we've grown the company to around 270 employees. Those are not independent contractor, 1099 people. Those are W-2 employees that are relying on us to keep growing the company for a paycheck that they, are getting to live off of and meet their ends meet. And we take a lot of pride in that to make sure that we're keeping to grow the company and sustain that group. So that's a little bit about us.
Talk about pressure once you have 270 heads to account for. It's there. What a wonderful story. Thank you both for kind of giving our listeners a brief background into where you come from and then just the mission of J29. And we're excited to dive further into this. Tracy, I think for you specifically, to start first, with you having a diverse career from biology to the DoD and then founding J29, how did these different experiences lead to the idea of creating a company like J29? And what unique perspective did that give you?
Yeah. Well, so just one little correction. It was chemistry.
Was it chemistry? Okay.
It was chemistry, not psychology, but that's okay. I think that, kind of like I said, it was the experiences that I took from every job. It was the challenges that I faced at every job to lead me to sort of what I thought was missing. Everybody wants to improve on something, I think. But for me, it was my time with the government where I just believe that every government contractor has a responsibility to leave their programs better than they found them. And at
Absolutely.
J29, we are not interested in just winning the contracts and collecting the paycheck. We want to be the company that makes a difference. We want to bring innovation. We want to bring technology. We want to bring collaboration. We want to work together to solve the issues that the government agency has. And, again, it's really not about the money of the contract as much as it is about creating that lasting, meaningful impact. I want our customers to remember J29 in 10 and 15 years, when they have those, we all have those conversations with someone where it's like, hey, do you remember so and so? Or do you remember that company? Do you remember? That's what I want. I want that legacy for us of just sort of being bold with our mission, being bold with the why, but also performing really well.
Yeah, and you said earlier, especially with wanting to be employee centric, you're right. I think, and I don't want to speak from a derogatory standpoint about a lot of companies, but I think that ends up getting leveraged rather than utilized and implemented. And the workforce can feel that. I'd speak to a lot of, with my background in safety, from an HSE perspective, from the oil field, and then now corporately, and now on transportation. And so I'd speak to a lot of different diverse types of people and that come and go. And you talk about turnaround, and so to bring an employee on board and then to really focus in on being employee centric is a challenging task. And so for J29 to have accomplished that and to take your background, Tracy specifically, and some of the things that you've learned. And I always tend to, and I don't want to put these words in your mouth, but for me, I always tend to tell people from my experience in the oil field, it wasn't necessarily what I was taught to do, but in fact, it was actually more of what I was taught not to do. Right. So I learned about all the things that I probably shouldn't do on a regular basis. And I've taken that since and applied that. And so I'm interested because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but from your background and maybe not being in an employee centric environment, taking that passion and bringing it to J29, obviously, and you guys are on the Inc. 5000 list for your significant growth. You spoke about it earlier too, being organic. That's super impressive, very much impressive. So, um, Nick, I'm curious, from your perspective, you were recently recognized as an Engaged Federal Health honoree. What key qualities do you think helped you earn this recognition, and how do they translate into your role as president at J2?
You on mute.
Oh, wait, I think you're muted.
Sorry, let me get off mute there. Sorry about that. I think for me, what I've been really fortunate with is we've had people that are still with us today that really make my life much easier. And we have some very, very strong managers, some very strong leaders in the organization, and some very strong subject matter experts that just know clinical arenas, policy arenas, compliance arenas, just know what we're doing, and can really lead and drive our programs to new heights. I've been very fortunate, and actually fortunate to not be the smartest person in the room when I'm talking to some of these folks. So there's been a lot of learning opportunities for me. Um, what I will say is a lot of the recognition that comes, oftentimes when there's an outsider who is looking at, giving us a certification accreditation award or something like that. Oftentimes they just search for a CEO title, a president title, and that's where the awards do get associated with. Um, it does disappoint me sometimes because there's so many good people that we have at the VP level, at the director level, at the manager level, supervisor level, down to the analyst level that, don't have an opportunity to get that recognition. And I have to say, sometimes you get the individual awards and it's like timeout, let me throw some commas and some additional names behind the recognition that we've got. So I think just to answer your question, I mean, we've just been so grateful with the employees. I mean, you heard a little bit about the mission, the vision for J29. I mean, that cultural component, employee-centered component sets us apart. Second to that is the work that we do, and those employees still benefit us there. And that just, um, you know, allows for awards like this to come, but it's been such a team effort still, and we're not anywhere where we want to be in our journey, but yeah, just been really fortunate with the team that we have around us.
That's awesome. I want to kind of dive in a little bit there, Nick. And so you have a healthcare technology background. Tell me a little bit about what that looks like and how really how those experiences are translated to J29. And then really, where did you come in at J29? Was it at the very beginning? Was it a year in? What did that look like? And how did you guys connect with that?
Yeah, so I've been let me even back up. I mean, the healthcare mission in our book of business, we are supporting Medicare populations, Medicaid populations, TRICARE populations, and even group health plan populations, employer provided health plans. We're touching on all different healthcare populations, some that are in more, some that are in uniquely different vulnerable states than others. And throughout my career, even before J29, I've been fortunate enough to be able to interact directly with those populations, directly, not from an outsider's perspective where we're doing things healthcare IT related or claims related, records related, whatever it may be. But when you can work directly and get in front of the people that whatever program is supposed to benefit, when you can get directly with them, that might even be in the hospital, in an operating room, whatever it may be, that just comes to fruition because when you can really go top down in terms of getting exposure to what someone's doing from a leader or manager, whatever it may be, there's a lot that you can learn in terms of the healthcare IT space. So, again, for me, I've been in a couple different roles that have been very IT focused, very program focused, very patient kind of care focused. And, what I love about the work that we do for J29 is we're able to see the impact that it has to these different vulnerable populations. I mean, we have employees that are with us that might be Medicaid eligible, TRICARE eligible, Medicare eligible, whatever it may be. And you hear from them or you hear from other beneficiaries. Yeah. So, I mean, just to kind of bring it around full circle, I think I've just been very fortunate to have been on programs that have kind of engaged with people at all different levels. It's gotten me a lot of exposure and kind of opened my eyes up for things that we want to do now at J29 or, even don't want to do.
That's great. And at what point did you come into J?
So I started working with Tracy in a part-time capacity around 2018 and then came over full-time July of 19.
Oh, fantastic. Awesome.
He was the first full-time employee
Oh, that's awesome. That's fantastic. Okay. That's awesome.
Was that through prior engagement that you guys had, or was that a
How did you guys link?
yeah?
Yeah. So I had known of Nick through a team that my son followed, and we would go to the games. And truth be told, Nick was a D3 lacrosse player and
Okay.
won a national title. So we got to see that, and I was just always very inspired by him. I watched him, and my son was very inspired by him. I watched him go through several injuries and always bounce back. So, it's that passion, purpose, and perseverance that you just recognize in someone. And when you hear Nick talk, he's very humble. He talks about not being the smartest guy in the room and wanting to surround himself. And he talks about, that he always passes it down to the team. I think that finding people, and we continue to look for people at J29 who just want to roll up their sleeves and get it done. I mean, it's that whole, work hard and be nice to people mentality. It sounds really simple, but, there's not a lot of people who can always fill that role. So I knew and I knew that he would be one of those. And, starting a company and getting people to take a chance on you, to really seeing that vision, and investing in it, coming into it from the ground up. I think that's really been something else that's kind of fueled our success a little bit, is just that work hard and be nice.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Which I love that phrase, "Work hard and be nice to people." And you had mentioned Tracy, and I think it's so interesting how this meshes together with the creation of J29, and then you getting into the governmental, going back into the governmental sector, and that maybe not being well received, considering the background for that, which both myself and Michael are men of faith, and so we don't come across that very often in our line of work here with the podcast very often. So, but you talked about that being, I don't want to say a struggle and put words in your mouth, but it was a challenge because of the way that maybe it was perceived, which is interesting considering Jeremiah 29:11 being about perseverance, and here you are today. So,
Right.
if you feel comfortable kind of sharing some of those trials and challenges of early
So
J29 and
initially, yep. Initially, I didn't tell people. I didn't realize our logo at J29 is an anchor, which has sort of morphed over time to, it's not just an anchor. It's oh, and I'm trying to see if I should have something kind of right here. I'll just kind of hold that. So if you see the logo for J29, um, the center of it is like a little person, people, people employee centric, and the base of the anchor is the 2 and the 9 for the Bible verse. So, um, people started asking, "Oh, is the anchor because you're from, the Annapolis area?" And I'm like, "No, the anchor is, based on, my foundation, my root in my faith. And the company is named after a Bible verse." And I didn't start out telling people that we tied our earnings, that, we have this whole philanthropy side, because I didn't think I I I felt people just wanted us to come in and do the work, but then they realized that that's what set us apart. And then I started to realize that that was part of my mission too, is by telling people about it, right?
Yeah.
What it's for. And I think when you name your company after a Bible verse, there's a lot behind the scenes there, right? And there's a lot of weight from that you feel every day. So that's kind of, again, like the work hard and be nice to people. At the end of the day, none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. We can all own up to those mistakes, and we're going to do the right thing though, right? We're about honesty, we're about integrity. You can trust us. I don't expect you to believe that when a partner first comes in, but once they've worked with us, they see that. We're not just saying, When we say we're employee-centric, we have an almost 99% employee retention rate. There are things that come behind this that make you continually strive to live up to the standards of where you are. Looking back, I don't know that I would have maybe necessarily done that because there's, like I said, there's a lot of weight to it.
Yeah.
People expect us to be perfect, and we're not. Um, but
Naturally.
I share the story with people about what we were named after. These are my beliefs, and we choose to model that. We choose to model that to people. We inspire our employees to, be kind, even when somebody's having a bad day. Just it kind of becomes part of our mission and our core values as well.
I love this, right? And this is something that's kind of gone on behind the scenes. So first and foremost, like what you've done from a consulting standpoint for 99% retention rate is crazy, especially in the consulting world, right? I come from a management consulting background as well. And like, was it 10 year, like 2 years, 3 years, right? And then it's jump to the next one, jump to the next one, or pipeline is not good. And they're just going to keep on jumping. And so the fact that you guys are able to achieve what you have achieved in the consulting world, especially in the government contracting world, is actually a huge feat. But I think even more importantly, I love the idea of gospel centered business, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's something that's catching on more about how we run companies and how you're able to really set the tone from top down, but also allow, because a lot of people think of like uh, gospel centered biz, there has to be an all out revival in the boardroom every time you're there, or something like that. But it's just like you're saying, right? It's keep being kind to each other, hearts being mended, and things that are coming together, relationships being reconnected, right? There's so much when it comes to like this idea of what gospel centered business is, and so my question to you is: was gospel centered business or heaven in business or that was that kind of on your mind when you started, where you're just like, I just want to follow this.
Yeah, no, 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 not at all. I um sort of just the opposite. I mean, I had been through some stuff, right? Like everybody else in life. And that Jeremiah 29:11 was a verse that I always kind of clung to. Psalm 91 is another one for me. But I think that when you get to the point in your life, and when I was at my most broken, I'll say, and when you realize that the worst things that happen to you become the things that you're most grateful for because you realize they pointed you to where you are, that's a really powerful place. So when you're sitting in church and you feel like, and some people think this is crazy, the Holy Spirit is telling you to go out and start a government contracting business when your degree is in chemistry, right? That's not going to be well received. We have literally been on phone calls early on where somebody is like, yeah, let me know how this is going to work out for you. So, I say that it it holds us to a standard. We are not perfect by any means. I don't consider myself, to be the most spiritual person in the room sometimes, but again, it becomes a standard that we hold ourselves to. And it's how I choose to live my life. I don't judge other people based on how they live theirs. I don't want to judge anyone. I want to inspire them. That's sort of how I see that. Um, and I mean, Lord knows, I never thought I would be running a company, but I knew, and I would say, I need to pray about this. Like, God's if he calls you to it, he's going to call you through it. And he certainly has. And I mean, I believe that's what led me to Nick and some of these other great people on our team. But, when you talk about the employees and you talk about that retention rate, you have to not just say that. You can't say, I'm going to have an employee-centric company and you're going to get all these people and they're going to come and they're going to work for you and they're going to love it and they're going to stay. No, you have to be talking to them. You have to be listening to them. You have to be developing them and molding them and training them and teaching. No one comes into any job and knows how to do it. And
Yeah.
so it's this what do you need help with? How we bring in someone to do professional development to everyone once a month now. Lunch and learns. What do you need? How can you grow? You're having trouble with this. Let's get you with this person. Let's use a mentor. Let's do it's constant. So it's not just we're employee centered, 99%, and everything falls into place. It's
Yeah.
it's a lot.
That is. And uh, Nick, I'd love to have your perspective on this as well. Like, culture is really hard to scale, right? And it's hard to do it really well. Um, how how have you been able to partner together and scale culture in the way that you have for 99% retention rate?
Yeah. So, I mean, 270 employees, right? Two of us. Um, we've been very fortunate. Again, I mean, the first kind of question you asked me about the award, I mean, we've been really fortunate that we have a tremendous leadership team. Um, Different from a management team. We have a leadership collaboration group, or LCG for short, which is about 6 or 7 of us. And I think in our situation, I mean, it's really been a um, top down kind of impression that we've tried to make from a cultural standpoint. So, I mean, it starts with Tracy, it trickles to me, it trickles to the VP level, director level. You keep working down and down. And it's imperative that you have buy in at every single one of those levels. If you don't have buy in at the director level, you can't expect to have cultural buy in at the management level and so forth. So, that's been really, important for, I mean, even me individually, I need to have a good understanding of Tracy's expectations and where we want to take the company from a cultural standpoint, but also from a revenue standpoint, because we do have to keep the lights on and so forth. So we've been very fortunate again that I think we've, done a pretty good job, and obviously made sure we could always do a better job at just making sure that everyone from top down has an understanding of how we want to treat those around us that wear the J29 jersey, but also treat our clients and deliver on our programs and do our services and things like that. So
That's great. What was that point early on where you're like, okay, this is gonna work? Like, this, we're onto something.
um, yeah, I think scaling something organically from nothing, um, your tomorrow is truly never, promised.
That's right.
But no, we're still, I think we still move forward with the company. Like, who knows what is going to happen tomorrow? Nothing sort of business is promised next month. Nothing is promised in the next fiscal year. So I don't know if we've ever really had that, oh, time to sit back. Everything's all good. We've kind of made it impression yet. We honestly really haven't had that. I mean, we certainly had moments where we've had breakthroughs and we've had tremendous growth and tremendous success. And you do take a moment to sit back and, say, wow, this is exceptional. The team that we've kind of built out and the programs that we're supporting. But I don't know if we've ever fully had that, okay, we can relax type of moment. It's funny because we always say, oh, when this happens, we'll, take a couple days off. And Tracy and I are laughing because we've been saying that for years and years now at different milestones of the company. But um, yeah, it's very evolving to, just the needs of the business, what needs more attention and what our clients are asking of us. Nothing lightens up and gets easier as you continue to grow. So,
I just have to add though, I do remember there was a period of time 2 years ago where we won like a couple contracts sort of back to back. And I was like, this is great. And then there was Nick and he's like, no, 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 we can't stop. We can't stop. Like, what's in the pipeline? What's coming up? What are we doing? Now we have to do this well. And he's right. Because I think what people don't realize is it's great to win the work. Like the mission of J29, the foundation, the employees, that's all great. Now you've got the work, we've got to win the work. It doesn't stop there. Now you've got to perform. Now you've got to perform well. Now you have to outperform the last guy. And never forget. We were in the middle of a response for a contract. It had been a rough week. It was about 10:30 at night. And I remember clearly I said to Nick, you know what? I gotta go to bed. Like I'm going to bed. And we'll look at this tomorrow. And he said to me, I won't say who it was, but he named our major competitor at the time. And he said, you know them? They're not sleeping right now. And he's right, because in this line of work, when you're growing organically, it's not falling back on anybody else. And you have to work, and you have to work hard, and you have to outwork everybody else. So all of these other things can be great, but there's still this line of business that we have. There's still this contract we're doing for the government. That is what's letting us do the philanthropy, keep the employees happy, treat them well, develop them. And they have to be not just happy, but ecstatic and so happy. And then we're looking at the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So it's continuous.
That's awesome. You said something. Oh, go ahead, Nick.
No, I was just going to add, I mean, as we've continued to grow, the expectation continues to grow. You know, the pressure
Yeah.
continues to grow, and all of those things. We didn't have any of those when we were 2, 3, 5, 10 employees, right? No one's expecting you at 5 employee company to their expectations are going to be the same that they're going to have when you're 7 years in supporting, 4 or 5 different agencies, commercial, companies, 270 employees. So, expectations have definitely risen as we've continued to grow. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I want to go back, Trace, I think I heard you correctly when you said that when an employee comes on, they're tied to like a nonprofit, or
So we as J29, we tithe our earnings.
I love that.
We tied our earnings to a different nonprofit or community effort. So and we do that every month. And so when employees come on, one of the things that we tell them is, or we ask them is, what's important to you? Is there anything that you regularly support? Is there any nonprofit? Is there any, it might not be a nonprofit, it might be some kind of a community effort. What's near and dear to your heart so that we can support it as well? Because we're all part of this J29 team. And that's how people start to feel that ownership towards the work they're doing when they understand the mission of J29 is it's not just to do that work. It's not just to win the contract and to get the revenue associated with that contract. It's a much further reach as well within the community.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's awesome, right? It's when organizations say that they're family, the family oriented, their family, it feels like a family, right? It almost feels like that's how you guys see it as well, right? This is a family, and that's a very seems like controversial these days, right? Because I hear this from you, and then we have or larger organizations like Netflix where they're like Reed Hastings is like absolutely not, like we're not a family, like you are on a team and you have to earn your way in, right? And so like it's both spectrums, right? But I love the way you're doing it is because it's organizations say that they're family oriented aren't supporting their employees like you guys are doing as well, right? They're
I'm going to be a little controversial right now.
all right. I love it.
Go ahead. Well,
I don't use family anymore when it comes to JH. I use team. And
Okay.
I'm going to tell you why, not for the reasons that you think. We all know a lot of families out there that are a little dysfunctional. We all know a lot of families that there's a lot of issues. And when you're part of a team, you're all working together for a common goal, and you look at the strengths and weaknesses of everyone and you come together to do something. So I don't say part of the J29 family anymore. I say part of the team because I feel like that really does show the unity in us. Unfortunately, I know families who choose to disown some of their family members or, again, they're dysfunctional in a way. So it's not that I don't, have a place that's near and dear to my heart for every employee. Believe me, I feel the weight of 270 souls every night when I go to bed, because it's not just those 270 souls, it's their family as well, the people who are relying on us for their health care and for all different things. I know Nick feels this as well. When you're small, like Nick said early on, you don't have those worries. When you're growing and you feel that, when you look out for their best interest, when you don't want to let someone else down, when you're not going to disown someone, you're going to grow them and you're going to teach them. As long as there's that mutual respect, that's the team.
Uh,
And so I've moved from that family to that team mentality for that reason, so that we can be closer and stronger. And I don't want anyone to feel like we're going to disown them.
mhm. That's great. I like that.
Yeah, I was thinking about that just before your question, Michael. We've had the privilege of talking to some really cool people and interesting people and hearing a lot of background stories and that sort of thing, especially as it relates to business and progression of business. And you can go across that spectrum from those who really are and not to name names, but those who are really attached to titles and the earnings of getting there, which is great. Aspirations to climb the rung and the ladder, and grow within a company. But as I'm listening to you guys talk about J29, and you just answered Michael's question about family versus team, but even though you are team oriented, we can see and feel the fabric of what feels like family because of the cohesiveness of the internals of J29, which we you don't see often. Like Nick, like you said, growing and scaling, especially organically, is a very challenging thing, much less in the medical field of all things from a federal perspective, compliance and that sort of thing. And I'm interested. You've overseen, Nick, a couple contracts or multiple contracts with significant federal clients like CMS and HRSA. How do you ensure that J29 specifically stands out as a partner of choice in such a competitive field?
Yeah. It's a couple different things I think that we look at. One is ultimately there's a hard look in the mirror that we have to do to ensure that whatever new business we're trying to take on, commercial level, local level, state level, federal level, whatever the client is, that it's a right fit into our book of business, right? And that's a hard question to ask when you're a small business and you're trying to grow, grow, grow. We need to support, whatever growth strategy that we had. Oftentimes you want to say yes before you even kind of know what you're getting yourself into. So there's a lot of risk that comes with that, going outside of your swim lane. So I think the first part of the answer is just making sure whatever work that we're taking on fits into our processes, fits around our staff expertise, fits into our technology that we're using. Just we can take that business in and it's not going to be too much of an ancillary or outside service. So that's one. I think two is honestly understanding um, any client, commercial, state, federal, history on how this work has gone before. What has gone great? What's gone bad? Um, Ideally, there's been some form of roadblock if they've made a decision to now solicit J29's help and engage with J29's help, right? If everything was going perfect, these clients wouldn't need us, right? If they were doing everything perfectly on their own. So understanding, just pain points, having a transparent conversation with them, getting almost a history lesson on what was life before J29, that helps us formulate everything from communication to innovation. When's the right time to do that? Delivery, what's their expectations around that? Um, and then ultimately it's getting an understanding of the people that are going to support these engagements. Doesn't have to be on the federal side, state side, commercial side. Where's their passion at? If we're going to take on this new work, do they want to do this? Is there something that they can get a little emotionally bought into, mentally bought into? Is there something that they're going to want to go above and beyond for, or is it just going to be a check the box exercise for them? So I think between those, three areas, just understanding kind of client history, pain points, stuff like that, understanding our employees' mission and what kind of fits around their heartstrings a little bit. And then ideally, is the other one, what just fits into what we do? Is this a good fit for us? We have to kind of look in the mirror a little bit, and not everything is. So yeah, I think that's kind of what we've done, decently well. That's really set us up for success with the different programs that we support today.
When you think about saturation in an industry or a market specifically, do you see a shift where clients are wanting more of specifically what J29 has to offer versus the variety that they typically go for? I say that because in my own industry, uh, there was a time, and pretty much anything before now, where there's just a plethora of options. And safety wasn't a huge, I think, consideration. And now that we're seeing from a compliance standpoint, from a insurance standpoint, things kind of get to another level. Companies and clients and customers are starting to make more executively, I don't want to say this from like, again, from a derogatory standpoint, but smarter moves to companies that are actually taking that serious. And so I'm curious if you guys are noticing a shift in that, especially from a competitive level. Is that getting any easier, or would you say it's still just as competitive as ever?
Yeah. Very competitive landscape. I think the market that we want to be in. And again,
Sure.
processing, analyzing, reviewing claims, data, audits, appeals. That's the business that we get at. Every once in a while, there are disruptors that come to that come in any industry, that we've ever been a part of. There's always disruptors that come and they want to shake up the market or do things differently. Some of it sticks, some of it doesn't work. So, I think the thing for us is we have to understand that what we do well today, and more so how we do it, might not be applicable at all a year from now, might not be applicable a month from now, 2 years, 5 years from now, whatever it may be. So it's really a hard ask for a lot of people, but it is a challenging ask for all of our leaders here because we're really saying, okay, what we do well today, great, we're doing a great job, but we're going to need to take a hard look in the mirror 6 months from now, and we're probably going to need to pivot. And change is hard no matter what the organization is or industry is. It could be change around technology. It could be change around a process, communication styles, whatever it may be. I mean, no one would have thought that we would have been fully remote and interacting with our clients in a fully remote environment, but even, handling that kind of change there. So, um, yeah, I think the big thing for us is just accepting that. Just accepting that, hey, we're gonna do a good job from day one, but we need to know that we're gonna have to pivot at some point, and that's okay. We're gonna be able to do a better job as we're exploring new technologies that are coming in and how we can leverage those, or new expertises and new focus areas around things that just weren't a concern for our
Mhm.
clients before, stuff that they weren't thinking of 5 years ago or didn't need to think about it. So yeah.
Yeah, that's and in that light, and the amazing buzzword of artificial intelligence, um, how how does it maybe not impact the business, but how has it advanced what you guys do, especially from an analysis standpoint? And are you guys using it today? And maybe how are you guys using that?
Yeah, definitely elephant in the room question. No matter what your industry is and what your role is, artificial intelligence is, people want to talk about it. They want to learn about it
Mm,
too. Um, and every organization has to look at it. Any organization that's telling you they're not thinking about it, they're not doing anything about it, it's just not true. Now, are all of them fully using it today? Probably no. I
Yeah.
think the thing for us, and the thing for anyone too, that is looking more into AI, is you have to understand, for that to fully work, there's so much before AI implementation that needs to go on. You need to understand your business use case. You need to really understand the data that you have or don't have access to. How can that be curated and leveraged to have a tool that holds an artificial form of intelligence that's making decisions? So as we talk internally on AI and we engage with massive agencies with, trillions and trillions of dollars in budgets, um, I don't think personal, opinion, I don't think AI will ever fully eliminate, jobs. I don't think AI will like throw people out of the workplace, but I think it will be leveraged, and companies that can leverage it better will obviously succeed. It can be used to better allocate your time, right? To pulling you out of these labor intensive tasks, these administrative tasks, using AI to make, um, recommendations on decisions, using it to connect the dots on different data or cleanse your data or ingest your data in different ways, flagging different types of cases or claims that we look at. So then we're reallocating really skilled people on our team. Let this tool do some of that for you. And then we're going to sit you towards the finish line, and we're going to use your expertise for what you're really good at. I mean, for what you're helping at. So
Exactly.
again, that's just kind of my, perspective. I think just the last thing I'll say, last two things, it's a very long road to fully implement AI. Like everyone is thinking it's going to be implemented. Um, I think we've been fortunate where AI has really set light bulbs off with us and our clients that might not even be light bulbs or curiosity related to AI, but now it's letting them explore and talk about and think about and accept, to my earlier point, that we might need to get behind a technology in a couple years. I'm going to open myself to thinking about AI. Okay, now what else am I going to open myself up to thinking about? And what else can I be kind of looking to change within my organization? So I think the companies that can leverage it right for their business use case, and some might not have a business use case today, but, those will be some ones that we'll see succeed.
That's fantastic. Yep. Yeah, I agree with you. Right. We're definitely at the infancy of AI. Right. Even 5 years, 5 years in from really understanding what it looks like, and I think we're still 5 to 10 years out before we really see um, an inflection point of where it really has an impact. I think it has an impact today, but I think it's very consumer focused, as well as, I mean, AI has been around for forever, right? Companies have been using it for forever, right? Social media has been using it for God knows how long now. And so it's in there, it's in our world. It's just a lot more forefront now, right? And it's a lot more buzzy right now. And I think it'll start to go downhill from a buzzword perspective of just going, okay, hey, this isn't just something cool anymore. People are really starting to understand, what am I getting out of this? What am I actually going to do with the technologies that are out there that are building platforms, or not even building platforms, right? Maybe it's just I want to plug and play a model, right? What does that look like? And so I think you're right on point.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say too, like there's really good studies out there. Like Gartner put one out around just the hype. They use the word hype, but like mindset and approach around these innovative technologies that come up. And oftentimes you do see just such a high peak of what they say is inflated expectations, right? You have something innovative out there. You have a cool, idea, cool thought, really high expectations that might be a little bit unreasonable. And then we need to kind of work with our clients to level set on what's your business use case, because these people that you see in the news might not be a one-to-one match, and then ultimately you get to an end goal of productivity. You kind of level set a little bit. So yeah, I definitely
Absolutely.
agree with you.
Yeah, and I would hope it would take a little bit of time and consideration, considering AI and medical files and documentation. You hope is pretty secure, especially from a compliance standpoint, and some of the information that can get shared in the event of a leak or a hack or whatever it might be. And so, hopefully, they take their time on that, as I'm sure they have all well already thought about. But it's very fascinating to hear some of the inside knowledge from this side of what you guys do. I'm sure we're only scratching the surface. We're just fascinated with the evolution of what's transpired with J29, and I think specifically for our listeners, um, the way that you guys have shared the challenges, how cohesiveness works from every level of a business is important, because, like I said, at the forefront of today's in podcast, being able to give our listeners an inside look into some challenges that they're most likely going to find themselves in front of that at some point in their careers, or the growth of their emerging companies, etc., or even some of those that are power entrepreneurs that are refining themselves in those areas of tribulation, so to speak, and they're able to pull these stories to kind of refresh themselves and break through. So I'm interested, just for our listeners specifically, if Tracy, we'll start with you. If you have maybe some knowledge to share with an up and coming, whether that's the field that you're in, or from a business level, of founding something from 0 employees or 1 employee yourself to 270, um, some encouragement for that
Yeah.
person.
I mean, I think the encouragement is, it's like anything else. Really think about what you're doing before you do it. Know your why. Know your values. What are your values? What do you stand for? What do you want to portray to other people? Um, I'm going to steal this from Nick because he says this all the time. Don't boil the ocean. Early on, someone told us if someone asks you a question, just say yes and then ask them to clarify it later. Do whatever you need to do. No, you need to find your swim lane, find those 2 or 3 things that you're really good at, and that's what you do. Nobody does everything well. Find your specialties and stick with it and grow with that. Ask questions. Get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
If it worries you, if it's a fear, if it challenges you, face it and do it. Do it until you're not afraid of it anymore. I mean, it's kind of like anything else in life, right? But really getting comfortable being uncomfortable because you're going to be. But, um, and you can't stop. This business is not for the faint of heart by any means. Find a good partner and somebody you can trust, and know your values and stick to them, and realize that it can take years to build your reputation and 5 seconds to lose it. So every day, every decision counts. In this world of AI and social media and everything being out there for everyone else to see, just be strong in your foundation and stick to it.
Love that.
Amen. I love that, Nick. I'm interested. I'm going to tie in a little bit of your background for this one, if that's okay. I played 20 years of basketball myself, so sports was a huge part of my upbringing, and I think a integral part of what I do now, and a lot of aspects of my job. I find myself reverting back to some of those mentalities. How has And what could you say for maybe somebody coming from maybe even D1 sports or college or high school sports, getting into the world of business? I don't want to only talk about the sports side, but I'm curious from your perspective, if some of those qualities tied into from D3 lacrosse into what you're doing now, just like what Tracy saw in you. And do you have any words for an aspiring business individual?
Yeah. I think definitely the sports correlation in the business world is unparalleled from a conceptual skill standpoint. I mean, when you're playing sports, regardless of the sports, there's adversity, there's resilience, there's preparation, preparing for your opponent, preparing for a client, in the business world. But I think the biggest thing when you're starting something from nothing and you don't have brand recognition that a Fortune 500 company has, it is you're gonna get knocked down a bunch. Equating in the sports world, you could be losing games, you could be losing, go over in your entire season. But there needs to be a continuous, like, self reflection, team reflection, company reflection on that rejection, that resilience, that adversity. How are you using that to your advantage? Right. So, okay, you go on and you pitch a client and they are tell you 5 minutes in, you've wasted their time and then hit the road. How do you use that to your advantage? What are you learning from that? What went wrong? Not just going home and pouting in the sports world like you would after a loss. You're watching film, you're working with the coaches, you're recognizing, okay, I did X, Y, and Z wrong in the game. I did X, Y, and Z wrong in this business meeting. How am I working to make sure that that doesn't happen again? So that's the thing I think for us, everything we've um, had, all the business success that we've had to date, we have scrapped and clawed and fought for. We've had nothing put on a silver platter. And this idea, for business owners, even want to kind of humble, our level set rather with some people out there. There is a lot of days where you're down bad. You've had a lot of, a lot of rejection, a lot of whatever, just things that haven't gone your way. But the ones that are able to really self-reflect on how they can use that to their advantage the quickest, to me, are the ones that are succeeding. How do you get figured out if you keep getting knocked down? How can you just quickly figure out how I can turn this around before it happens again? So
Mm.
yeah, a big self-reflection piece, being able to hit adversity, and you handle stress obviously in certain sports games in different capacities, games on the line. You have the basketball in your case, Will, in your hands with the final shot. There's obviously pressure that goes to that, and some pressure that you can relate over to the business world. So
Sure. That is excellent. I think I can speak for Michael when we say we're excited to see the continual rise of J29 and the sector that you guys are in. I think it's a very important field for a lot of those in need of healthcare. And I might be a little biased because my mother's also in healthcare. She's an RN from on the different side, but I do have a lot of passion for that and some of the things that I hear about. So, and obviously my background is safety and compliance as well. So we're just very fortunate, myself and Michael, that you spared some time. I'm sure very busy on your end to share with our listeners some of the insider knowledge and challenges and how to overcome them, the growth, expectations, and just some awesome knowledge about what you guys do.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having us on and for chatting with us and spending this evening with us. We appreciate it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been fantastic.
yep. Yeah, that's been great. Thank you guys so much. And just to anyone listening too, Tracy and I are always trying to learn, any creative ideas that people have around culture or innovation, anything in the healthcare space. I mean, please reach out to us, check us out on j29inc.com. And yeah, thank you both, Michael and Will, for having us on. It's been great.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.